وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ zulkarnain, and they question thee about zulkarnain. Qarnain means two currents, and qarn can mean a horn, or more appropriately for our context, qarn can mean an age or an epoch. And so for us, a man whose story is going to impact on two ages, one in the past and one which is to come. He travels in both directions, but then Allah goes beyond the two journeys to describe the third. The rabbis wanted to know whether he knew about the third. And on that third journey, Zulkarnain came upon Gog and Magog. And these are a people who constitute a major sign of akhir, zaman, or the last age, which only a prophet would know. Gog and Magog have to be human beings. Why? Because they were described in the Quran with these words. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض. That Gog and Magog are people who commit fasad in the land. Fasad is conduct which is very sinful. To commit sin, you've got to have a free will to be held accountable. So either jinn or human beings, not angels. Angels cannot commit sin. And of the two, human beings or jinn, the Quran is clear, it's not jinn. So human beings. So let us begin by taking all the fairy tales and putting them in the garbage bin. Gog and Magog are human beings. We have not gone to hadith as yet. Notice that. Our analysis is based only on the Quran so far. They are, however, a people who have been endowed with power, indestructible power. How do we know that? Because Allah speaks in the Quran about Zulkarnain and says that He is given the power to do whatever He wishes to do. So Zulkarnain is a superpower. But when on the third journey Zulkarnain was requested by a people who were suffering from the fasad, the corruption and destructive conduct of Gog and Magog. Please help us, we're prepared to pay you. Zulkarnain could not destroy them. No. Rather, he had to be content to build a barrier which would contain them. So now they are contained. They can't do their wickedness anymore. So we know that Gog and Magog are very powerful, evil forces, human beings. And we know about Zulkarnain that he also has power. He can punish. But insofar as Gog and Magog is concerned, he can only contain them so that they cannot commit their fasad. Only Allah can destroy Gog and Magog. So Zulkarnain's journey is described in the Quran, and the Quran begins with a journey to the setting of the sun. And as he journeys to the setting of the sun, he came upon a body of water which the Quran describes as hamiyah, dark and murky. When we use the totality of the data that we have, and I don't have the time to do that tonight, but I do have a book at the back entitled, oh my, I don't think I may have brought enough copies with me tonight, An Islamic View of Gog and Magog in the Modern World. Then we can easily recognize the body of water. And indeed, in the books of tafsir, you'll find that the Mufassirun have recognized it and identified it as the Black Sea. And guess what is located in the Black Sea? A peninsula called Crimea. Oh yes, Crimea is in the Black Sea. So when he reached to the Black Sea, Ainun Hamiyah, he found a people living there, and Allah asks him, إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا. Zulkarnain has power, but his power rests on the foundations of faith in Allah. And notice that Russia is returning to faith, returning to Christianity. Russia told them, get lost. We are not going to enact any legislation allowing a man to marry another man. Get lost. Russia will not do that. Russia slapped them on their face, and it's still stinging them up to now. Who? The Zionist West, which today is now flowering and blossoming into what its true essence is. That in the Zionist West, the last symbol of progress is legislation that will allow a man to marry another man. So Zulkarnain has power, and his power rests on the foundations of faith. How are you going to treat these people? Listen carefully, because this has application not only at that time, but in a time to come, which would be in akhir zaman, because Gog and Magog belong to akhir zaman. إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا. You can either punish or reward. How are you going to use your power? Zulkarnain replies, and these are his words, and they better listen carefully out there in Washington. Listen carefully to the Quran. أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. If you are wicked in your conduct, if you use your armed forces against your own people, the armed forces against your own people, that's wickedness. So Ukraine, you better listen. If you are wicked in your conduct, then I am going to punish you. And when I am finished with punishing you, You will then return to your Lord and He will punish you as well. And so when power rests on the foundations of faith, there will be harmony between the world here under and the world above. وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا. For those who are a people of faith, says Zulkarnain, and whose conduct is righteous, I will reward them. I'll treat them nicely. So this is a power which uses power for purposes of justice and for purposes of furthering the cause of truth and of righteous conduct. MashaAllah. And then Zulkarnain traveled in the direction of the rising of the sun. And there he came across a people, لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُمْ مِنْ دُونِهَا سِتْرًا. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be agonizingly brief in his use of language. Agonizingly brief. Why couldn't he just expand it a little bit more? All that Allah tells us about the people that He encounters on the journey towards the rising of the sun. لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُمْ مِنْ دُونِهَا سِتْرًا. That's all we have to work with. That's all. We come to the conclusion, and it's difficult to conclude, that maybe this is a lesson in human rights. Human rights. The Zulkarnain places human rights above all other considerations. That if you come across a primitive people, and in that land in which they live, there is an ocean of oil underneath. In order to access that oil, you've got to get rid of these people. No. That's what the oil companies would do. That's what the Zionist West would do. Without batting an eye, they'll get rid of the people. Because money is more important than people. The oil is more important than the primitive people. But not Zulkarnain. So Ukraine, I hope you're listening. Because Zulkarnain places the human person and the rights of the human person above all other things. These were a primitive people. كذلك. One word? That's all you've given us, Allah. One word. كذلك. وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرة. One word. See how difficult it is sometimes with the Quran? We understood perfectly why he acted in the way that he did. He left them as they were. كذلك. He did not disturb them. So be careful with Zulkarnain. Be careful because Zulkarnain places human rights at the top of the list. And if you violate the human rights of a single person, he will come after you. We said that the rabbis ask of only 2 journeys. But that was a trick. They wanted to know whether he knew about the 3rd journey. And on the 3rd journey, we are taken to Gog and Magog. These are a people who impact upon akhir zaman.